If you took a look in your bulletin, you may have noticed that the title of today's message is The Solution to Most of Our Problems. The solution to most of our problems. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, the solution to most of your problems, the solution to most of my problems, not the solution to all of your problems. I don't want to overstate it. I mean, what we're talking about today, it's not going to solve your financial problems necessarily, and it's not going to solve your health problems necessarily. What we're going to focus on today is going to solve our relationship problems. Our relationship problems. Last week we had Marissa Hughes give the message. She talked about the importance of community in her life. And she talked about the fact that this period of 2+ years has really shifted some of her relationships around. And she mentioned specifically that there are people who used to be important in our lives that just aren't part of our lives anymore these 2 years later. And that's true for just about 100% of us. I mean, we have lost people to the virus, we've lost people to death, but beyond that, there have been some relationships that have been fractured, maybe within your family, maybe within your friend group, maybe within your church family. Relationships have been damaged and fractured during this time. And if you're sitting there feeling like, well, no, all my relationships are perfectly intact. Everybody I was buddies with 2.5 years ago, we're still close now. If that's you, praise God for you. Congratulations. You're the exception in this case. Right? And so we're in this time of healing as a church. We're in this time of healing as a community. And so we're going to talk about how to solve any kind of lingering relationship issues that you might have. How about that? Because there is a solution. Full disclosure, it's not going to happen overnight. If there's a strain in some kind of a relationship, if somebody's hurt your feelings, if you've hurt somebody else's feelings, if you're going to solve that problem, it's not going to happen overnight. But if you apply this method that I'm going to give to you today, if you apply this method, you will solve your relationship issues. Now, I should point out that this is not a method that I created. Now, this is Jesus. Jesus gives us an outline for how to solve these problems, how to address these issues. So much, in fact, so much of what Jesus has to tell us is how we are to relate with and take care of and get along with one another. And Jesus spends so much time teaching us how to get along with one another because we need to be taught, right? Intuitively, if we just relied on our own human nature, intuitively we are selfish people, we are self-seeking people, we are envious people, we are greedy people, we are jealous people, and we need to be taught not to live according to our own human nature, but to live a better way, to live a different way. So here's what we're going to do today. We are going to take a tour through one of Jesus' most famous sermons of all time, the Sermon on the Mountain, which is found in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. So if you have a Bible with you on your phone or there's Bibles in the pews, I want to encourage you to open up to Matthew 5. So we're going to take a brief tour through the Sermon on the Mountain, well, most of the Sermon on the Mountain. And then we're going to land on one specific verse. And this one specific verse sums up so much of what Jesus has to say about how we are to treat one another. Not only that, but the verse that we are going to land on sums up so much of what the entire Bible has to say about how we are to treat one another. And so, if you will, let's take a look. Matthew chapter 5. And those of you who have been with us for a while, you've heard me say this time and time again, I love the Sermon on the Mountain. If you've never read Matthew 5, 6, and 7, if you're not like, I don't really have the discipline of reading the Bible, this is a perfect place to start. Matthew 5, 6, and 7. You can read it today. You've got off tomorrow, right? Read it tonight. It doesn't take long to read. But the reason that I love this is it's so simple. It's so practical. It's so practical what Jesus gives us. I'm not saying it's easy to live out, but it's simplistic. Jesus just tells us, here's how you are to treat one another. So the Sermon on the Mountain begins with the Beatitudes. Jesus addresses this group of followers, and he says to them, verse 3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are all of you out there who are struggling with depression or struggling with mental anxiety. Blessed are you who are struggling with a sense of hopelessness. Blessed are you, for yours is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn." He's looking out of a group of people who are struggling with grief, Having lost loved ones who are mourning something, he said, blessed are you, for you will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Those of you who are meek and humble in nature, you're going to inherit this land one day. Blessed are you. Blessed are those, this is great, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you will be filled. They will be satisfied. If that's what you're seeking after in this life, is the right approach, the righteous way of living, you will be satisfied. What if that was the desire of our hearts? God, I just want to live righteously. I just want to do the right thing. I just want to follow that right path. Jesus says, if that's the desire of your heart, if you're hungry for it, you will be filled. You will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are those who are not seeking revenge or seeking to, balance things out. But if you're showing mercy, blessed are you. Mercy, again, it's not intuitive, it's counterintuitive. Blessed are you when you show mercy when someone's offended you or someone's hurt you. When you show mercy, blessed are you, and you will be given mercy as well. Blessed are the pure in heart. Do you know people who are pure in heart? There's a couple of you here right now, and I'm not going to point you out, but they're just pure in heart. No underlying wicked motivations, no underhandedness, just pure in heart. For those who are pure in heart, you look at the children, pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers. The peacemakers. We need some more peacemakers in this world, right? The people that aren't stirring up trouble, that aren't causing division, that aren't pointing out what somebody else did wrong, but no, they're trying to create a real peace. Not a superficial peace. Let's try to ignore our issues and ignore what's going on. No. But we'll establish a real peace, conflict resolution, peacemakers. Blessed are those peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when you endure that criticism, and it's not fair and it's not right. Blessed are you when you are judged, and that judgment is not fair and it's not right and it's not based on truth. Blessed are you, because one day you will receive the kingdom of heaven. So wonderful to hear Jamie's prayer speaking about that future reality of that perfect kingdom of heaven. The kingdom we live in now is so flawed and broken, but one day that perfect kingdom will be ours. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Jesus tells us flat out, there is a pattern in this world. God sends people into this world to speak his truth, and the religious community attacks those people. He says, this has been happening since forever, guys. If you find yourself in that situation where you're serving God, where you're speaking his truth, and the religious community attacks you, you're in good company. That's the same way they treated the prophets who were before you. Rejoice. You will have a reward in heaven. Verse 13, you are the salt of the earth. Ooh, salt. Salt gives things taste. Salt preserves. Salt makes things better, does it not? Yes? Anybody on a low-sodium diet? How boring is that, right? Salt. You are the salt of the earth. Beyond just, the taste. You are the salt of the earth. You are what preserves. You are what makes it good. So be who you are. You are the light of the world. Light gives us direction. Light shows us the way. Light illuminates the right path and the wrong path. Light shows us. Light brings clarity. You're the salt. You are the light. We move to verse 17. Jesus describes his ministry and what he's about. Do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. So here in this verse, there's a lot we could unpack here, but Jesus essentially says, I'm here to bring about this new covenant, not to erase the old covenant, but to fulfill that new covenant. He tells us how important. He speaks to the value and the importance of the old covenant while saying he's here to fulfill that covenant. Talks about righteousness. In verse 20, for I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. My goodness gracious, it's one thing to be able to manifest an appearance of righteousness in public. It's another thing, as Jesus says earlier, to genuinely hunger and thirst after righteousness. And then we move into this section here where we really start getting into the nitty-gritty of how we are supposed to treat one another. Verse 21, you have heard it said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or a sister will be subject to judgment. Let's pause for a moment, because how many of us in this room are angry at somebody right now? Maybe it's just in the background of your spirit somewhere. Jesus says, okay, you've heard before, don't kill anybody, don't murder. Fantastic, good for you. You haven't murdered anybody today? Great. What about what's going on in your heart? What's going on in your heart? Is there anger there? Some kind of unresolved anger issue in your heart towards somebody else? Because that's the birthplace of murder. Congratulations on being able to control yourself and not kill anybody, but it starts in the heart. Jesus cares about what's going on in our hearts. God cares about the heart. And he goes into this let me just read this. You shall not murder. Anyone who murders will be subject to judgment, verse 22. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. That was an insult. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. What are you talking about, Jesus? He's talking about the heart. It's one thing to be able to refrain and prevent yourself from killing somebody else. But what's going on in your heart matters. Therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar and they remember that your brother or sister has something against you, you need to leave and go make it right. God values reconciliation over the presentation of your offering. Did you know that? You come into worship on a Sunday morning, you got a big fat check you want to give to God. I'm going to give this to God. But if you have something against your brother or sister, some kind of resolution some kind of issue that needs to be resolved, you go take care of that first. Because that's more important to God. To go and be made right with those who have something against you. Adultery, moving into verse 27. You've heard it said that you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. What's the key word? Heart. Yeah. What's the key word? Heart. What's going on in your heart? And from God's perspective, God knows the heart. God values the heart. He says, don't do this. If your right eye causes you to stumble, verse 29, gouge it out and throw it away. It's better to lose a part of your body than for your whole self to be thrown into hell. Don't go there. Don't allow yourself to have those thoughts, to look at those images, to look at that person with lust in your heart. When I was a teenager, I was taught, and you know what teenagers are like, right? Right? We were all teenagers, right? Well, I was taught, teach your eyes to bounce. Don't let your eyes fixate on that thing that's going to cause lust in your heart. Just teach them to bounce. Teach them to bounce. And so, gentlemen and ladies, I share that little bit of advice with you. We're not teenagers anymore, but I share that advice with you. Teach your eyes to bounce. You don't have that lust in your heart. Divorce, verse 31. It's been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you, anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery. So many pastors are afraid to talk about divorce because we have so many of our members of our congregations have been through divorce. And that's true, and that's a sad and heartbreaking thing. But here's my perspective. Those of you who have been through divorce, you already know how tough it is, how painful it can be. You already know. And so we share the words of Jesus for the sake of those who have not been married yet. Just hear the words of Jesus, that divorce is not God's ideal. And if you think it's easy to get a divorce nowadays, you should have seen it back then. Just get a little certificate, give it to, wait, where's this coming from? Yeah, we're divorced now, by the way. What? So Jesus saying, no, that's not how it was from the beginning. Two become one flesh. Oaths. You've heard it said to the people long ago, do not break your oath. But then Jesus tells us, just let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's what Jesus says. You shouldn't have to make an oath or a vow or I swear. No, just be honest. When you say something, mean it. Let your yes mean yes. Let your no mean no. You know, in our household, we talk a lot about honesty with our kids growing up because I don't know if you know this about human beings, but we're prone to lie. Did you know that? All of us. If it means protecting ourselves, or I don't want the truth to come out, I don't want people to find out this about me, I'm just going to lie about it. Why are you late? I'm going to lie about it. It was traffic. It's not that I don't want to be here. I'm just going to lie about it to protect myself, for self-preservation. That's our nature. And if you lie all the time, then you're forced to say, well, no, this time I really, really swear. I take a vow. I really, really swear. Well, don't do that. Just be honest all the time. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. I didn't say it was easy, but it is simple. It's simplistic. Just be honest. Moving on. How about verse 38? You have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. You have this teaching in your minds. And once upon a time, God gave the people this idea, and so that there would be a limit on revenge, a limit on how people would try to make things right and balance the scales. But Jesus is saying, don't think of it that way. Okay, you took my eye, I'm going to take yours. No. Let's not worry about balancing the scales and giving somebody back what they did to you. Don't think of it that way. Don't resist an evil person. Someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other also. If anyone wants to sue you and take your cloak, just say, fine, take this as well. Take my tunic as well. Don't go to that place of trying to create balance. Really don't, because that's intuitive. You hurt me, I hurt you. That's intuitive. Jesus says, don't live that way. Live counterintuitively. And he says, if someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. It's important to note, well, it's worth noting here that Jesus was speaking to the Jews who were being oppressed by Rome at that point. And a Roman soldier could legally force any Jew to walk a mile with him. Here, carry all my stuff, we're going to walk a mile together. That was the enemy of the Jews, were the Romans, right? You got to take my stuff and you got to walk a mile with me. Jesus says, if somebody comes along, whether it's a Roman soldier or one of your friends, and says, I need you to carry my stuff for a mile, you say, let's make it 2. Ooh. Go the extra mile. Have you heard that? Yeah, Jesus came up with that. Give him credit for that one. Go the extra mile. That's Jesus. All right, where were we? Help me out here. Eye for eye. How about love your enemies? Verse 43. Brief tour, Sermon on the Mountain. This is the passage that was in your bulletin here. You've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Now he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Listen, friends, you have this sense, this intuitive nature of wanting to, again, balance the scales, right? You've been hurt, I want to hurt back. I've got an enemy, I want them hurt. No. He says, love not just your neighbor, not just the people who are like you, but love your opponent. Love the people who are against you. Love the people who are tearing you down. Love the people who are gossiping about you behind your back, and you hear it comes back to you, like, oh my goodness gracious, just love them. Well, how do I love them? Well, go ahead and pray for them. Not pray against them, pray for them. Not those praying against prayers, God smite my enemies. Not that. Pray for the people who are hurting you. I'm pausing so the Holy Spirit can speak to each one of us right now. Who's hurting you? Who has hurt you recently? Excuse me. Let's pray for that person. Pray for your enemies. Pray for those who are hurting you. Verse 6. Excuse me. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. Again, we're going back to a heart issue, a motivation issue. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. The idea is this. It comes back to the heart. Why are you doing what you're doing? If you're doing a good work, if you're giving to the needy in order to be praised by people, and you get that praise, well, guess what? There you go. You've got your reward. You got what you were seeking. You were seeking acknowledgement, you were seeking praise, and you got it. But that's it. But instead, make it about God and wanting to honor him and wanting to do for him. Motivation, your heart. Your heart does matter. I'm sorry to ask. Jamie, could you grab me a bottle of water? Is this, am I allowed to do that? That'd be great. Thank you so much. We're trying to make our way through here. Here's my man. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Jamie. That's what happens when you sit in the dugout. You might get called on to help me out. Thank you. All right. Giving to the needy, again, make it about God. Prayer, same thing. When you pray, it's not supposed to be a spectacle. It's supposed to be about you communing with God, taking that time to speak to your Heavenly Father. Ask for what you need. God tells us, or Jesus tells us, to go into that prayer room, whatever that looks like in your life, to go to that place and just make it about you communing with God. And when we gather together to worship or in small groups or in prayer meetings, we're praying in front of each other. But again, God is speaking about the heart. The heart is what matters. Are you praying so that people will say, wow, she's a great prayer. Is that what you want? What kind of a weird thing is that to want? If that's what you want, that might be what you get, and that's all. And that's all that you get. Same thing with fasting. Why are you fasting? Are you putting on a show? Or are you attempting to focus on your relationship with God? The heart matters to God. Treasures in heaven, verse 19. Don't store up for yourself all this stuff that's going to get destroyed one day. Because, and again, Jesus is speaking to these issues because this is where our hearts naturally go. It's where our hearts naturally go. Wouldn't it be nice to have this? Wouldn't I be more comfortable if I had this? Wouldn't I be more complete if I had this? And then you get that thing, and guess what? Oh, there's that other thing. There's that other thing, right? And so there's always this questing after more to make us feel complete or comfortable. How much of our pursuits in this life have to do with comfort? Comfort. If I just had this, my life would be easier, more comfortable, and more complete. And we know. I mean, we've seen this story play out millions of times. It doesn't work. There's always that next thing to desire. And that bright, shiny new thing that you buy one day will be destroyed with rust and moths and all of this. So pursue the things that will last forever, the things of God. Verse 25, Jesus tells us not to worry. You know, again, transitioning right from this passage about what we should be seeking treasures in heaven. He says, don't worry about the essentials of life. Don't worry about your life or what you will eat or drink or about your body or what you will wear. Is life not more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They're not toiling away, and yet your Father takes care of them. Your Father knows what you need before you can even ask. Don't worry, but pray. How about that? How about that? Make prayer that first response, that instinct. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to ask my Father for it. That's what I'm going to do. We move on to chapter 7. A very big chapter here. We're not going to make it to the end of 7, just warning you so you can read the rest of it on your own. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. Just don't do it. Just don't do this. So often when we read this passage, those of us who are Christians think, I'm not supposed to be judgmental against people who aren't Christians. Well, it's really, you're not supposed to be judgmental about anybody. People who are Christians, people who aren't Christians, don't just there's the critical nature, I think, that can be in all of us. Let's not worry about what other people are doing as much as we're concerned about what we are doing. Jesus teaches us, if you're so concerned about what somebody else is doing wrong, and you're trying to correct that other person, you're trying to take that little speck out of that person's eye, and then meanwhile you got this big old issue in your own heart that you're looking right past, you got a big old plank in your own eye. First, take out the plank. Then you'll be more capable and qualified to help somebody else remove the little speck out of their eye, that little speck of wrong out of their life. Chapter 7, verse 7, ask and it will be given to you. Ask of God. Ask and it will be given to you. Knock and the door will be opened. I mean, Jesus gives us this parable later on about a woman who's just demanding justice from this judge. She keeps knocking at his door until the judge finally relents. Keep asking, keep knocking, keep seeking. Seek and you will find. And it gives this description in verse 9. Which of you, if your sons ask for bread, will give him a stone, or if they ask for a fish, will give him a steak? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? And so he lays this out. Just ask God for the things that you need. And so far, and it feels like we're doing an injustice to the Sermon on the Mount by breezing through it so quickly, but so far we've seen how Jesus tells us to interact with the fellow human beings. We've seen how Jesus wants us to be reliant on God. We've seen how Jesus wants us to treat other people. And then we land on this verse. And we land here on verse 12 of chapter 7. And what Jesus says here, it sums up so much of what he has to say about how we are to treat one another. Not only that, it sums up the law and the prophets. It sums up the Old Testament. It sums up the Bible, how we are to treat one another. To sow in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Friends, this is it. This is the solution to all of your relationship problems, all of them. Treat those other people the way that you want to be treated. How about that? I want you to do me a favor. Raise your hand if you've never heard that before. There are no hands raised right now, right? This isn't some obscure teaching tucked away in some kind of part of the Bible. What's this book? No, this is big. I mean, we've claimed this as the golden rule. Just treat other people the way that you want to be treated. If the situations were reversed, if the roles were reversed, how would you want to be treated in that situation? Think of it that way. You know, when you prepare a sermon, it's not uncommon to find yourself challenged with the very principle that you're preparing to teach on. And so I found myself challenged a few days ago. I was driving, and how much of these, the whole driving example. There's so many issues that happen when we're driving. So I'm driving, and I'm going down Amos Land Road, and I'm minding my business, and I'm staying in my lane, and all of a sudden, this pickup truck gets in my lane and just starts coming at me. Like, what is happening? Then he makes a turn. I was like, okay, he needed to make a turn. No turn signal, by the way. It was a really nice truck. You'd think it would have turn signals, right? And so I did that thing after I pulled in. I did that thing where I slowed down. Just like, looked at the guy like that. Do you ever do that thing? I'm embarrassed to admit it, but what are you doing? I thought, wait a minute. What am I preaching on Sunday? Do to others as you would have them do to you. So I don't know. Maybe this guy is lost. Maybe he's looking for directions. Maybe he's looking at his GPS. I don't know. Maybe he forgot to put on his turn signal. Maybe he's going through a lot. Maybe he's coming back from the hospital. I don't know the situation. And so if that was me pulling into somebody else's lane and making that turn without a turn signal, I would want grace. I would want mercy. I would want compassion. Wouldn't you? These simple things. Let me give you another example. Another example is a little bit tougher example. Again, a few days ago, last week sometime, it's 9 o'clock, and I'm literally working on this message. It's 9 p.m., I'm working on this, and I hear some noise upstairs, and one of my daughters is crying. And that time of night, if there's tears, it's usually whining. It's usually, I don't want to go to bed, I want to be up, that kind of thing. And so instinctively, I'm annoyed. Who's not asleep? It's 9 o'clock, goodness gracious. Instinctively, I'm annoyed, but then I stopped, I thought, wait a minute. If the situations were reversed, how would I want to be treated if I was crying? I would want somebody to take it seriously, not assume that I'm just whining about some nonsense. And so, okay, went upstairs, talked to my daughter. Why are you sad? And she was missing her grandmother who passed away recently, missing my mom. And so if I had gone up there with annoyance, and what are you doing? Get to bed. You're whining about nonsense. If I had gone up there like that, making it about me, being inconvenienced, that I have to break what I'm doing to go address this, if I'd made it about that, that would have gone very, very wrong. I thought, how would I want to be treated in this situation? There is a profound wisdom to what Jesus gives us here, because we all know how we want to be treated. You know how you want to be treated. When you mess up, you want to be forgiven. You want someone to have compassion. You want someone to be gracious to you, because we all mess up, whatever that looks like. When you mess up, you want someone to rush to forgive and be willing to hear you out and be quick to restore. If that's how you want to be treated, then treat other people that same way. A couple Sundays ago on Father's Day, Jeff Schmidt talked to us about the power of our words, and he landed on this whole issue of gossip, which is so destructive. It is so destructive in our families, in our communities. It's been so destructive in this church to see people gossiping, spreading rumors about each other. It's been destructive. It's been disheartening as the pastor to watch this kind of thing happen. Just stop it. Do you want somebody gossiping about you? Oh, yeah, please. No. Then don't gossip about them. And listen, we do this so just effortlessly. We're praying, we're talking, we're venting, whatever. It's a prayer meeting. We're just a vent session. I'm just kind of getting this all out there. Whoa. If you don't want to be gossiped about, then don't gossip about other people. Those of you who are on social media, do you want someone to be nasty to you on social media? Then don't be nasty to somebody else. Be respectful. Be polite. This whole social media phenomenon, are we still doing this? Because it's not working out. People still on this? It's not working out. Why are we being nasty to each other? We feel like we're anonymous, that we're like, no, I know who you are. I know what you're saying. Stop doing it. Don't post it. How about this? Do you want somebody always questioning your motives? Do you want that? Well, he's only showing up to this because he's trying to get in with this, or he's trying to curry favor with this. Do you want someone questioning your motives, why you do the things that you do? Do you want somebody doing that? Raise your hands if you want somebody always questioning your motives. You don't want that. You don't want that. You know how many relationship issues could be avoided if we just didn't make assumptions about each other? Do you know how many relationships issues could be avoided? Just don't make assumptions about each other. Let me give you a little piece of advice, and this is kind of a side topic, but this is free, all right? Here's a policy I have, especially when something's in writing. If somebody's communicating something, if it's verbally or if it's in writing, if it's text message, if it's an email, if there seems to be a tone in those words, oh, what did you mean by that? What did you mean by that? I'm going to do two things. First off, I'm going to assume that that other person is on my side. That wasn't now. You're just being brief. You weren't being nasty. You were being brief. There's no tone here. I'm assuming what you're saying to me, you're on my side. I'm assuming you're on my side until you prove otherwise, okay? I'm going to make that assumption. And if I have that question in my heart, what did he mean by that? I'm going to ask, hey, I read this. What did you mean by that? Oh, okay, great. Do you know how often that clears things up? Oh, whoa. No, I know. I've actually had somebody call me Kurt before. You're being Kurt. Like, I'm Josh, not Kurt, and I had to look up what Kurt meant, right? I can be short and to the point, and boom, here's your answer. You're being Kurt. Oh, like, oh, I'm sorry. I was just relaying some information. I didn't mean to be mean. I wasn't trying to be short with you. Sorry. You just have that conversation. So don't make assumptions about people. You don't want them making assumptions about you. And if you ever find yourself in the situation, like, what did you mean by that? Just ask the person, not accusingly, but I was reading this. What did you mean by that? Okay, great. This is the solution to all of our relationship issues. Just treat other people the way that you want to be treated. Flip around the situation. If the roles were reversed, how would you want to be treated in that situation? How would you want to be treated? We, human beings, we have this quest for balance or to get back at people or to make things right, and we want to give people what they deserve. And God tells us, you don't even know what people deserve. Don't try and treat people the way you think they deserve to be treated. No, just treat other people the way that you want to be treated. Problems solved. What's going on in your life right now? Who are you holding anger against? Who have you been gossiping about? And you didn't mean to gossip. You didn't try to gossip. It just spilled out. Who are you gossiping about? Who have you been spreading rumors about? Who have you been talking about instead of talking to? Who is it that you have not been treating the way that you would want to be treated? What can you do today to make that right? Offer other people the courtesy that you want them to offer you. Offer other people the grace that you would want extended to you, the compassion, the forgiveness, the love, the respect that you desire. Give that to everyone, not just your friends, not just the people of your same political party, not just the people that go to your same church, but extend that to everyone, your enemies, your coworkers, your family, your friends. Treat other people the way that you want to be treated. Can you imagine what planet Earth would be like if 100% of the population lived this way? Can you imagine? There's no more war. There's no more crime because nobody's stealing because they don't want to be stolen from, right? I mean, what a fantastic world it would be. It would almost be the kingdom of heaven if we just treated other people the way that we want to be treated. I know that's impractical to even imagine a world like that. But what about this? What about all of us who identify ourselves as Christians? What if all of us just made a pact with God? You know what? I'm going to treat other people the way that I want to be treated. The dramatic impact that we Christians can make on this planet would be huge. Let me give you one more what if. What if it was just us? Just the people here today and the people listening to these words. What if it was just one little old church in Ridley Park, Pennsylvania? What if we just made this our policy? We, as one little church, we are going to treat other people the way that we want to be treated. There would be no more poor in our area because we would take care of them. There'd be no disrespect among our congregation because we would be taking care of each other. There'd be no more gossip. There'd be no more relational issues. We would solve so many problems if we just embrace this one teaching. So I say, let's do it, right? Let's make this our goal as one church. Let's do what Jesus says. And I love these statements that Jesus gives that like sum up. Here's a teaching that sums up a lot of other teachings. This is it. Just treat other people the way that we want to be treated. When we do this, we create a better world for ourselves and for our surrounding community. It's got to start somewhere, guys. It might as well start with us. Let's treat one another the way that we want to be treated.